Are you looking for entrepreneurial candidates? That's the big questions. Are you looking for people who are quality reps to be able to come onto your organization? You have to have enough volume and quantity of applicants coming through your vetting system to find the people who just raise their hand and go, pick me, let's do this thing. Where some people think about it the opposite way. Yeah, I get it. I know I need certain numbers and all these different things, but I'm looking for the really entrepreneurial candidate, the person who's going to look at this role just as I do, or looks at their career the same way I do as the entrepreneur, as the business owner. Am I looking for entrepreneurial candidates to come into my organization to represent my product or service? I want to talk about that around this conversation of quality. Let's talk about a couple of key points. Why entrepreneurs seem like a great fit for your organization. Now, we help every type of business out there, from insurance companies, car dealerships bringing on salespeople, telecommunications, remote sales forces, B2B lending, merchant services, you name the type of business that hires a lot of sales talent at scale at a commission only rate to build out their sales force and bring in revenue. That is who we serve. My name is Jay. I built a B2B lending company in about 3.5 years from an idea on a cocktail napkin to about 1,800 reps across the United States. From zero to multiple eight figures in revenue, we were selling a high ticket product that ranged from $7,000 to $15,000 with reoccurring revenue and reoccurring payments throughout the entire process. And by the time we sold that company last summer, we were bringing in about 500 transactions every single month with 1,800 sales reps. We have dealt with the conversation of quality or entrepreneurial type talent. We weren't just bringing on the entry level college graduate that needed to take on an opportunity to get some sales experience. We were bringing on people with 20, 30 plus years of experience, whether it's owning their own businesses or working in high levels of corporate America. And what I learned over time is some key aspects about bringing on entrepreneurial talent. This will apply to you no matter what type of role you're bringing on. Let's talk about why entrepreneurs seem like a great fit. They're resilient. Their speed to understanding is very, very quick. They're going to think just like you. You're going to feel like you've got some running buddies out in the field that are at your level, willing to put in the amount of work that you would be willing to put in for your own company. They're used to going through pain to succeed. They may even help you improve your scripting. They may even help you, give you some helpful tips around culture, around onboarding, around compensation. They'll be able to give you some wisdom and experience based off of some of the things that you're doing and some of the things that they've done, which is always helpful when you've got a community of like-minded people and people that have had that level of success in their life. They often land in the top 10% of your performers, but usually it's short term. Let's talk about why entrepreneurs often don't stick. They want to do it their own way. So sometimes they can fall into the culture of your company, but then quickly try to determine their own culture within your company. They judge your systems, leadership, and compensation plan a little too hard. Even if they come in with a high degree of appreciation for the role, eventually the shine always wears off the new car. And all of us have to figure out that you got to put the miles on the car to get to your destination. The excitement wears off and judgment can start to take place. They use your business as a springboard to start their own business. I've had this multiple times where people come in and they want to try to figure out, okay, what can I learn here so I can go out and start my own thing? Honestly, I'm not against these things for actual individuals. I'm just trying to give you some perspective on how to think about this as the owner of your company. Here's the other thing. They typically leave within 3 to 12 months. They may bring in a lot of revenue short term, but they will eventually leave because they figure out that they can make more money on their own than they can with you. Here's the other aspect of it. After I get through this list, I'm going to give you some perspective to give you confidence. I'm not trying to steer you away from entrepreneurial people. My entire organization that I work with are entrepreneurial people. I'm going to share the harsh truth and the reality that you as the video watcher are going to be able to relate to me, because I used to be this individual, this candidate. In the early stages of my entrepreneurial career, when I left the banking industry and I jumped into solar, I made about 50 grand, about 45 days in commissions. Then I started working for some other roofing companies and I kept contracting out and working with different companies because I always thought, listen, if I do it myself, I can make more money per transaction. I could figure out all these bells and whistles to help it grow and scale and succeed. I can do it my own way. I judge the systems. I judge the leadership. Hey, I don't like the way this guy does this. I would have done it this way, not that way. I was this person. I guess the final thing I would say from somebody who's more of an entrepreneurial individual coming into your organization, if they do rise through the ranks, they're going to garner a lot of influence if you give them the influence within the organization. And if they ever leave, it can create some problems for you or a collapse in your morale or the organizational infrastructure. So you got to be careful around that, delegating leadership to those entrepreneurial people. Now, a lot of this, when I went through the negatives, it could sound very negative. Okay. But here's what those entrepreneurial individuals don't realize, because let me tell you my journey. I started selling solar for another company, made a bunch of money. That was my matrix blue pill, red pill moment where I was like, man, I'm never working a corporate job ever again in my life. I was working 60, 80 hours a week for 12 months out of the year to be able to work for a 2-week vacation to get a 5% raise. I made great money, but I was bound by what my boss told me to do, when I had to show up, when I can go to the bathroom. It wasn't the role that I wanted. If it's the right thing for you, that's awesome. I love it. I'm not here to judge other people and what they do. I'm just telling you my journey. So from solar, I jumped into helping some roofing companies. And I said, I'm going to start my own thing. I'm going to fractionally work for a lot of these companies so I don't have to go door to door anymore. And that ended up working pretty well. I worked with solar company and a handful of roofing companies and helped them build and scale out their sales team. And I was making my living by helping them build those teams instead of selling, which was phenomenal. Then I started to figure out, so now I went from being the employee salesperson to now contracting with other business owners. Here's what I learned there. I thought I can go out there and do it my own way to help other people. And what I ended up figuring out was I just transferred the headache of my career from one area to another, from sales to working with other business partners. My success is predicated on the emotional stability of these other business owners and their willingness to be partners with me. Everything's a trade-off in life, the pros and cons. I started to figure out what that looked like. Then we built the B2B software company, which is a video for a different day. And here's what we learned there. We worked really, really hard to build up that sales team. Here's what the sales force went through: judging systems, leadership, and compensation. And we shouldn't do it this way. We should do it that way. Hey, I'm going to learn this backend system so I can do this for myself. Here's what they don't know they're going to face. They weren't the ones to start the business. They weren't the ones to front end all the money to make the team that size. They weren't the ones who had to spend all the money on advertising. They weren't the ones who had to go through the 50 things that didn't work to find the one thing that did work when it came to marketing. They didn't have to go through the headache clients that, even though you did everything right for them, submitted a chargeback and all of a sudden there's negative $20,000 in your bank account. They didn't have to go through the risk of taking on the growth of the business. They could just sit there and judge what was happening. There's vantage points to everything. The leader has a vantage point. The salesperson has a vantage point. The sales manager has a vantage point. The operations team has a vantage point. The marketing team has a vantage point. All of them are right and wrong to different degrees. This is what a team is called. Those vantage points have to come together under a common vision, common cause, and a common reason, and be able to agree that I'm going to submit around a specific leadership infrastructure and keep the ball moving. Not to get too deep on this, but why entrepreneurs seem like a great fit and why they often don't stick. Am I here to tell you not to hire entrepreneurial people? No, I'm not telling you that. I'm just telling you that you need to know what you're going to face before you make the hire. Yes, they're resilient. They're going to bring in a lot of revenue. They're going to help you with scripting, their culture, the onboarding, the compensation. They're going to be good thought leaders. It's going to create an internal think tank of those top 10% performers. You're going to be able to lean on their past experience, and they're going to be able to be a thought-provoking voice in team meetings. But here's sometimes why they don't stick. They want to do it their own way. When they start to slip in production, judgment occurs around systems, leadership, compensation. And their vantage point isn't around the risks associated with building the company. It's about culture and it's about people. So yes, hiring entrepreneurial individuals, focusing so much on quality and volume-based commission sales recruiting, focusing on the quality is important, but the quality comes from the people who rise up on their own. As long as you provide the compensation plan, the leadership infrastructure, the systems, the culture, the right people are going to stay and the wrong people are going to leave. Those top 10% performers lead by example. The bottom 60 to 90% who aren't performing at that level at that time have examples to follow. Maintain leadership within your company. Key takeaways: don't hire like you. They won't stay. Entrepreneurs can boost revenue quickly, but typically short term, unless you do it the right way. The key factors you have to focus on, and it depends on your opportunity at hand, is the appreciation level for the opportunity and the ambition level of the individual. How do you gauge those two things? Their gratitude and appreciation is reflected in their attitude. How do they act with the things they cannot control? Do they focus on the things they can control to create wins? That's gratitude and appreciation around the role. And that's how you maintain a strong relationship with the right people over the course of time. Second thing is their ambition. Do they keep showing up? Do they keep putting the work in? Are they steadfast? Are they willing to continue to put in the work? Through all adversity, do they continue to push forward to win? Those are the two things that matter. And those are the two benchmarks that you have: gratitude and appreciation, one, and then ambition is the other. And every single one of us as individuals can gauge ourselves in that, but you can also assess your team in that way. And that'll tell you what you really have.